Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Future Podcast. With you is your host, Mahat Mangal, and myself, Aaron Alexander. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, so people, today we're gonna be talking about the world economy and the looming inflation.
It's not looming anymore. It's here with us.
Oh shit, yeah, it's already here. Okay, yeah,
And
so we're gonna talk about that and the American Federal Reserve, how they control the money, and what else?
we also look into the federal budget that was announced by President Biden last month. And we talk about how that is linked with our currency. Yeah,
And yeah, so happy listening.
you're listening, guys.
So, what made you like interested in this economics, like recently? What made you choose this topic for today?
I think it is of strategic importance because like the decisions that we take right now with regards to economic and fiscal policies, it will like affect the well-being of our future generation. Like I came across this, have you heard of the debt clock?
At clock, no.
Yeah. And so there's this website, let me pull it up. It's this thing. So I won't say that I've completely understood what is being shown here, but it's quite staggering figures. Mm, Something maybe that I can divert your attention to is at the bottom of the page. So like they show this calculation of assets per citizen and liability per citizen. So if you minus both, like they're basically saying each citizen has just 40,000 US dollars.
How credible is this site though? Like sources.
I've
You
heard
think
it.
we can trust it?
I've heard it being referred by other um, mm, in some media, and also somewhere in New York or along Wall Street, there is a placement, like there's a permanent fixture on a building that shows like a debt clock.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can find that.
So is this showing how much debt each person has and the national debt,
Mhm.
things like that? But what does it all mean? Because we are talking about an impending economic crisis, recession.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, recession would be if the inflation is not treated properly, right?
Mhm.
Or is it mandatory that a recession always follows in inflation? Is it like that? Or do you think the banks can manage?
So something that I came across, like the Federal Reserve, they're likely to risk.
I like this. What's your cat's name?
His name is Simba.
I keep forgetting. Yeah, Simba.
Little curious now.
Yeah. Okay.
So, um, yeah, so they're like the Federal Reserve is likely to be okay with risking slower growth. So that's basically like the way of tackling inflation is to reduce how much money is out there.
Okay. I think like we should start with the inflation and all that
Mhm.
for those listening. So can you like run me through that? How things got worse or some more basics?
The
Then
most of the reasons behind why inflation is defined as the increases in prices. Like that's how it, the word is being used in current literature. So, some of the reasons that are causing the higher inflation is the excessive amount of money that's out, like floating in the economy. So,
like especially during the COVID.
yeah.
and stimulus checks and
Yeah.
all that money that is pumped into the economy, right? So that people can buy more things.
Yep.
Keep the economy running. Okay.
So there was this example that I came across in an article, and it's basically like uh, you approach a shopkeeper, like someone who's selling wheat, and he tells you, "I'm sorry, there's no wheat. Like we've run out of meat. Sorry, wheat." And so then you offer more money, and magically, as like they worded it really well. So like the minute you offer more money, like the wheat just magically appears.
Mm.
So that's more or less the logic behind why having more money in the economy causes higher prices. Um, and then like the other reason that is attributed for higher prices is the supply chain shocks. There's a
Due to COVID and all that, because we have apparently we have run out of things that were supposed to be manufactured in those 2 years,
Mhm,
and that is hitting us only now. The
right.
shortage of production.
Yeah,
Am I right in saying that?
I think so.
Mm. And yeah, these are what I learned. These are a few things that I learned.
Mhm,
So mainly the pandemic happened,
mhm,
and then the governments were encouraging citizens to buy more things, so they gave them financial incentive like free cash
mhm,
in support forms, or maybe in our state and all, there was governments were distributing free ration and all, so food supplies. So even that would go to the merchants, right?
mhm,
To the manufacturers. In a way, the government is still paying the money,
mhm,
so that's keeping the economy going.
mhm.
So it's is it always like, so if what would have happened if they didn't give that money? What do you think at that time? So people have less purchasing power, but
Uh, I don't. It's. I think it would have. It might have been quite bleak. So maybe I think they did the right decision because there's another statistic which says like how much savings the average household has, and particularly in the US, that number is quite bleak. Like there was some there are surveys that ask US citizens or residents, like, do you have sufficient cash on hand to meet a I think $500 emergency expense, and like some disproportionately high number don't.
Mm.
So, given a situation where people were losing their jobs and their source of incomes are like drying out, uh, if there was no stimulus provided, it's quite likely that we might have seen a lot of, I mean, a lot of homelessness, unavailability of like inability to buy food. So I think they did the right thing.
definitely.
We can debate about like the exact amount.
Mm.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, I mean, production had to be stopped because of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
but then demand was still there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was that. Hmm. I mean, it's because of basic essential supplies, right? But more, what about more in terms of non-essential goods, things like that, or is it that uh, if you take out the non-essential goods away from the economy,
Mm-hmm.
it takes away a major, is it like major contributing factor? Is there something like that for the world economy? How it's divided into sectors? Have you
Uh,
looked at it? I have no idea.
so if you're talking again about inflation, the reference that all the economists and even the like mm, the Federal Reserve, they refer to the price consumer index.
Hmm.
So that is again, it's created. It has a basket of around 50,000 products, and that is selected based on surveys. So it's I'm not entirely sure what and all it will consist of. It might have non-essentials as well.
So now the price of living is rising.
Mhm.
It'll keep rising. It'll keep rising, and then
Uh,
what is predicted?
the actions that the banks are taking right now, central banks should put a stop to that.
Quantitative tightening.
Tightening,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. So you pull out money from the economy.
Mhm.
Central banks.
Yeah, they're doing that at a rate of around 90 billion US dollars a month.
Okay. My
They're,
God.
they're pulling out that sort of liquidity out of the market. And then the interest rate hikes that will make borrowing money more expensive. So
Mm.
and that will reduce the availability of funds.
Reduce spending, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Maybe that will affect credit cards more. But again, like if we shouldn't like generalize things too much. So there are certain parts of the economy, like certain organizations that would want to borrow for productive reasons, right? So you'll have to look at how it will affect their maybe like the project is no longer feasible because of this interest rate hikes. It is also interesting to note that like even though they're increasing the rates, like if you look at it historically, it's still quite low. Like if you
Oh,
look at a graph of interest rates, like it's at 1.8% now in US, which is quite low. I think like you there have been periods when it's been about like 3-4%. And I think like at the start of this millennia, like in the early 2000s, I think it was around 4%.
so maybe it's like to avoid a shock. Maybe like if they raise it too quickly, something like that.
I don't know. Like, so I think it's still going reasonably fast, relatively fast, because the central bank, again in the US, is predicting to have the interest rates around the 3 to 4% by the end of this year. It's currently at 1.8.
Oh,
So
so they're gonna raise it slowly.
yeah, I think every month they have a meeting and they announce, like they go through the data. Like every month the inflation data comes out, and based on like the readings, they'll have the decision. Like last month, they increased it by 0.75%. Uh, that kind
Which
of
is huge, actually, right? Even though it might sound
small, yeah.
small in terms of interest rates. Yeah. Okay.
And it kind of spooked the markets because up until like I think very close to the meeting, to the announcement, the markets were expecting like only a 0.5% increase. But then like the inflation readings came out, and I believe it was last month that they said like this is the highest inflation in the last 40 years. So again, in line with what data they got, they chose to increase it by a higher percentage than was earlier expected.
Hmm. I mean, what can people do though? It's all in the hands of the central banks, right?
It's,
Managing inflation.
it's a
Such
very
a
difficult.
macroeconomic.
I
And
would
also apparently this is like happening. Even the 2008 crash was small compared to this apparently, because now the world is even more globalized.
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts about that 2008 crash? I mean, India relatively was saved then.
Okay.
I don't know what Manmohan Singh did at that time. I'm not exactly sure, but somehow uh, we were saved. I don't know what.
Yeah, even like I think I mean I'm sure like if when we go down to a granular level, there were like a lot of families that lost their jobs. And I remember reading a story about a family that had invested a substantial amount of their savings into the equity markets, and like just before like it all crashed.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of like sad stories. Uh,
Definitely.
but like yeah, I think for the most part, like the road to recovery was all right. Like I'm just trying to speak from personal experience. Like I think like I didn't feel any hardships as such. Uh, so yeah, I kind of want
But
to.
I thought Dubai and all was like hit pretty bad.
Oh, definitely. There are stories, but
All the Middle East was
but
also, yeah, because from a lot of people from Kerala, like they had to return, things like that.
yeah.
So, but in terms of on the ground in India, I think it was somewhat relatively better.
Mm-hmm.
Could be the nature of our economy, like what we chose to, what our people are more investing into in India. I think could be. I'm not sure. Okay, I give up.
Yeah, that's exactly like so to your question about what individuals can do. I think it's always wise to be a little prudent and like just general advice. Have
No,
like a
but how can I save up? If I what do I do? Do you recommend that I save money in liquid? That's what I should do, or
that's what I've been doing. But I recently a mentor of mine told me that there are like he knows people who put in their emergency fund into treasuries. Like so in that case, like so it's very liquid. Like you can pull it out and so he also told me like even if it's an emergency, it doesn't mean like you need cash right away. It's probably like you might need it in a week or in a few days or stuff like that. So there are these treasury bonds that you can hold your emergency funds in, and you'll earn interest on that as well. So
treasury bonds?
yeah.
No, I mean like at our level, at the students level,
Mhm.
is there something that we can do to prep ourselves? There could be how if you knew that an economic crisis is gonna hit, how can you get prepared?
Pray, dude.
It's brilliant.
Hopefully, you're in a situation where your income flow is not impacted. Again, as a student, like, do you want to speak specific to you? Because that, like, it would be the same advice. Like, be prudent with your, don't spend excessively, keep yourself in check. I mean, like, the most basic and better than nothing is like holding cash savings. We can choose what to do with it like once we have a little like some substantial amount. Like we're probably not in situations where we have so much where we need to think about where we diversify and how we're holding it and stuff. So yeah, to start off with, and also it'll give you that peace of mind knowing that you have some cash.
Some left, something to
Yeah,
hang on. Okay.
there are like some. So last month the and so this like it's a longer term topic that I want to bring up right now. uh it's about uh, like I mentioned earlier, like in the start, about how the decisions we take now will impact our future. So last month, the president announced the federal budget for the next year, 2023, and I was just going through it just to kind of get an idea on what are they doing with their money, because I saw some comments stating that in times of inflation, the president is choosing to increase government spendings, which is going to do like not have a positive impact. It's just going to support higher prices. So,
Um, hmm. Yeah, it's also not coming at the right time because there is also this oil crisis that's going on.
mhm,
Because crisis as in like moving away from oil,
mhm.
so that is also adding to the rise in prices. I think we are in for something unparalleled in history, because it's a special situation. You just had a pandemic, and then you are like entirely trying to switch out the basic energy source of our society, and uh, yeah, we have an economic crisis.
Usually, like if you look at recession periods, they last for maybe 3 years. So, and I think like all the markets started shaking earlier this year. So perhaps until the end of next year and into 2024, we might feel some squeezing, some tightening.
Did you read the Japanese PM
Mm,
got shot,
yep,
assassinated?
kind of shocking. Kind of,
Former premier, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, right? Shinzo Abe,
yeah.
right wing extremist,
Mhm.
not extremist, I don't know, right wing supporter. There are some comments like he was Trump before Trump. I was just reading about him, so I don't know. Anyway,
When did he step down from power? Like it's been a few years, right?
he was still a representative, or something like MP, MLA kind of post.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So he was in power in a separate office. Mm, Anyway, things are happening. 2022 political assassinations are still a thing.
Mm.
And the guy apparently said he doesn't have any political grudge towards Abe.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay. I want to take us back to that the federal budget. He's apparently spending more on education, more on safer communities. Somehow some money is going towards like having better gun control, and again a substantial amount is going for defense. And I also came across something interesting. There's apparently a fund called uh, reducing the countering the People's Republic of China malign influence fund. They have,
Oh,
they have a fund for that.
share it.
So this pretty wild.
400 million.
Yeah,
My God, what are they gonna do with that?
no idea. This is going towards the NATO 6.9 budget.
Emerging needs related to security, energy, cyber security issues, disinformation, macroeconomic stabilization, and civil society resilience. Okay. Hmm.
Mm,
Now, Uganda has like discovered
that's legit.
gold reserves. Gold reserves, 12 trillion.
That's legit news.
Yeah, so that is legit, apparently.
Because I
But
only saw it on social media. I didn't see any news article about it.
yeah, even I didn't check on it, but it has to be true.
12.
Uganda gold.
Don't see.
Yeah. It's true.
And US is gonna go to give them freedom.
31 million tons of gold or another African. I mean, they can like turn this around if they do it properly, but it'll never go around.
The whole other
So
topic.
it's just gonna be another African. I mean, I hope it doesn't, but I'd like to think that's what's most probable. All these nations will come, they'll set up shop,
So
take
like
the gold.
one of the reasons why I was interested in looking at the budget, it's kind of linked to like how our monetary system works right now. Basically, again, back to the point that it's not backed on anything, like it's fiat, right? So I don't know,
Earlier it used to be gold, right?
right?
And then how do they like remove it though?
It's basically policy. So earlier, like before this, I think 1970s, somewhere around that time was
Yeah,
when they
70s.
decoupled it. And it's basically, so what happened before that is like the central banks have to maintain a certain percentage reserves, right? So like, for example, if you search online for the monetary supply, I don't know. I think there's like some $20 trillion floating around worth of notes. And so if it was as per the previous policy, like I don't know how much, but maybe 46 or 60% of that should be available in gold. So that either, like, I don't know how much, I think it still exists to a certain extent, but it's very uh small. So I'm in my mind, I'm picturing, I think it's like maybe just 3-4%, but I might be wrong about that. So I think they're still holding gold reserves, but it's significantly less now.
Mhm.
So the reason why I wanted to, like, how I link that to the budget is, like, if you get thrown too carried away with just printing, what is that?
Fire alarm, dude. Okay, so sorry about that. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, the only point I want to make is, like, a fiat-backed currency needs to be extra precautious that they're investing money into productive means. Yeah, that's why I was looking at the budget. I'm not sure if I was convinced. Like, there's not a lot of detail in that budget. It's more of a overview, right?
Yeah, I mean, how much is space sector, right?
Mm.
Budgets mainly. So decentralized governance and all that might help it in future, I guess. Imagine if you can govern a city through your crypto, right? Your computer link, the network that you are merging. Web3, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think, yeah, that will provide a little more like granular support. Like, right now, we can only elect the person and they take most of the decisions, right? More or less. So maybe if we have a crypto-based governance, maybe we can actively participate in more of the decision making.
like each voter gets,
An application.
well, like anyway, so each voter would get one, like equal amount of, each voter should be getting equal amount of coins, right? In that sense, like if I have more money, I shouldn't be able to invest more and get more of the voting power.
Yeah, I think it's like one life, one vote.
Hmm. Life tokens.
Also, the last area that I wanted to focus on was, I mean, I didn't get the chance to research about it, but again, I'm curious about the economic states in other countries, like Sweden. I think Sweden's like holding my interest. I think they're doing something right.
Sweden, I haven't really checked,
Okay.
but all these Scandinavian nations have so much to fall back on.
In what sense?
So, like they have their own sovereign funds, right? Norway has the sovereign wealth fund.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I think they also, their societies are better integrated.
That's a nice word. Nice choice of word. Integrated.
Yeah, so I think even if they come up with some policy, it'll be smart and quick, and people will take it up quickly. I think they tend to trust in the government must be higher.
Mm.
So they'll be the most safest, I guess. And also, like with inflation and recession, what happens is that the rich gets richer and poor gets poorer,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So they might, with them being the wealthiest in the economy, I think they might, eventually end up, being in a better position unless it's managed.
Let me just checking out. I think this is an official website. So they did have some challenges back in the 1980s and 1990s. There's an interesting story, but I'm not sure if it was Sweden or Norway, where they just completely started loaning out money and their banks collapsed, something like that. Yeah. So I'm very attracted by Sweden. Basically attracted by people who will take good strategic decisions. Do you have any thoughts about, like we were chatting about India, right?
Mm.
What do you think? Uh, what like where do we even begin to deconstruct India's economic image? So,
I'm not well versed in that,
hmm,
but all I know is that it's not in a good shape.
yeah, no, maybe it's fair to say that we might have more socio social issues rather than economic. Like,
Yeah.
for example, how what is our poverty? Like, how many people are in poverty in India? Mhm.
2025. Give a guess before you read
What in percentage or number?
percentage.
We have like 1.5, how much? 1.3 billion people
Mm. Mm.
ish.
Percentage.
Say 10%. What about you?
18.
18.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's see.
10.2 in 2019.
Oh,
Extreme poverty. Decline in urban areas was from urban poverty in urban areas is 6.3% in 2019. So yeah, maybe economically we might be fine, but culturally we're hella not.
economically we might be fine, but socially more or
Yeah,
than culture.
yeah. Because even in terms of economics, I don't hear like I don't come across news articles that talk about like doom and gloom about India. So I'm using that also as a sort of frame. And obviously, I don't think that like equity markets are as volatile as US. Yeah, the amount of debt in US is just stupid. But again, it's not fair to quote only US because they're like a common measure that's used is like the debt to GDP.
Mm.
So for Japan, it's like at 200 something percent based on something that I remember. For US, like in that US debt clock, it shows 157%. So there's a lot of arguments that I've heard, like some finance guys talking about how it's not a problem and it might actually be a good thing.
Hmm. I mean, I don't know. That's about it from my end.
Same. I will look forward. I'm glad that we're having these conversations, even though it might not be as detailed, technical, or insightful as we might want it to be. But nevertheless, it's good that you're having this conversation, and hopefully, in due time, we'll become better at it and gain more confidence and gain more information, insights, etc.
Definitely will. This has got to keep it running.
Yep.
So I think that's about it from us about this topic. So, like I said in the beginning, it's already here, the inflation. So, just what are your thoughts? Do you want to leave any
Closing comment.
last bit of advice?
Yeah, I would like to just again emphasize the importance of being a little prudent, spend a little time reviewing your finances. And yeah, let's make good money decisions.
All right. See you guys on the next episode.
Bye-bye.
And hit that like, subscribe, and the bell button. It helps us a lot.
Cheers.
Bye. See you.